Ethiopia's travel and tourism industry grew by 48% in 2018, and this is greater than any country in the world. And this is according to the World Travel and Tourism Council's annual review. However, the global pandemic, coupled with the conflict in north part of Ethiopia, have crippled the hospitality industry and also the tourism industry in the country. And reports on the number of global tourist influx into Ethiopia declined significantly from 35% to 65% between the years 2019 and 2022. A very warm welcome to you, ladies and gentlemen. This is Etv Special Edition, and I'm Santayo Tamrat with this edition. And in this edition, I'll bring you the entanglements in the Ethiopia's hospitality industry, particularly after the COVID-19 pandemic, and also the Ethiopian conflict in the northern part. And thank you so much for staying with me. And my guest today is Kumneger Teketel, who is just professional in this sector. A very warm welcome to you, Kumneger.
Thank you so much.
Would you just tell us about who Kumneger is and what he's doing?
We are doing a consultancy on the hospitality and tourism projects and doing like a feasibility studies, international brand negotiations, global procurements, and such type of activities which are related with the project. And our company is doing such consultancy over 10 years and have an experience on that area. And on top of that, we created before 10 years that the Hotel Show Africa, the first international hospitality and tourism expo in this country. And also we did a lot of efforts to establish the MICE businesses in Ethiopian tourism platform.
Well, now let's talk about the Ethiopia's hospitality sector, particularly before the COVID-19, and what was the progress like, and the kind of just the accommodation is built, the hotel infrastructure built in the country, and so on.
The Ethiopian hospitality business is one of the pillars which was not recognized by the government before 15 years or 20 years. Now it's become one of the pillars of the economy, and some of the infrastructures, especially in terms of the hospitality projects, were on the ground before 15 years, and a lot of hotels are coming and flourished like a flower, especially on the cities. This type of projects, some of them are international projects, some of them are local hotels, and most of them are saturated on the urban areas instead of the destination. And I think before 2-3 years, some of the destinations got some privilege to get additional investors who are planning to invest on that destinations. So far, it's on the progress and on the initial stage on the implementation of such type of tourism activities. Okay. It's not yet on very good shape at this stage. And there are lot of projects which was planned to be finished before 1 year, 2 years. And we were involved on over 10-12 projects in the countryside. Almost 60-70% of the projects were not implemented, and even not on good progress because of the financial crisis and the COVID issues. So we need to focus on that area, but there are at least enough space to improve that area. Even the local hotels are trying to qualify themselves and improve themselves to be fit for this tourist accommodation.
We said that the COVID-19 pandemic has significantly affected the global tourism industry, hospitality industry, and many other sectors. And to what extent did it hit the Ethiopian hospitality sector?
As you know, the first affected sector previously, even when we are talking about the date that COVID-19 commenced, was the hospitality sector. And most of the hotels were affected, even over 98%. And they are just reducing their staff members. They couldn't manage even to afford and pay their salary and their bank loans, and it was a serious problem. And still the problem is not solved yet, because the business is not like any other business. So the problem will be solved in the future. Even the forecast, I think before 2 years, there was a forecast that the hospitality sector in Africa will come to normal in 2023 or 24. So we'll have additional 2 or 3 years to recover from this situation, especially in Africa.
In line with this, the government introduced tax relief for the hoteliers during the peaks of the coronavirus pandemic. And was that really helpful?
Of course. A single stone is very important for this sector, because most of the investors were discouraged. So every step that the government took on that time was fantastic, but there are some additional things have to be considered. And we are talking about the investment. Most of the investors are doing a lot of things on that project, and they had very good gut to get that business, and the recovery time or the return on investment time was 10 years, from 7 to 10 years, but still they are not satisfied. And the occupancy, as you know, is below 50% right now. So in order to mitigate that problem, a minimum, the hotels need to have over 30–40% occupancy at the average level, even to cover their basic costs. So tax relief in every time is very important, not necessarily the hotels or the hospitality sector. It has to be done with other related sectors, especially with those who are giving a feedback for this hospitality business.
Well, currently the government is to introduce a new incentive plan to the hoteliers, and what's your take on that?
Actually, this type of sector needs always an incentive in different areas, and it has to be in detail, especially those investors to focus on their reinvestment on their businesses. So most of the time when the hospitality sector is affected, when you get the incentive without a strict follow-up or a strict procedures, most of the time incentive packages are not useful. So the government put a very good incentive right now, so it's becoming under process to implement. And I think such type of incentives will continue, and there are some details have to be done from the ministry side or from the executive teams. The most focused area that we want to see is in relation to the technical things. This type of incentive have to focus with the marketing activities. So the government have to put on the marketing incentives. One, the other thing is a capacity building. Capacity building is not just giving money for the hotels. Otherwise, giving the money for the hotels for the tax issue or for other related activities is not enough in this direction. The government have to support them how to market their hotel globally, not necessarily in the local markets only. So the local market is good, but we are not benefiting a lot from the foreign currency issues. So that marketing activity is one of the areas that the government have to focus in relation to the incentive process. The other technical thing is the accounting procedures, how they effectively use their accounting system with an efficient way. So that these are the technical ways how to reduce your costs. So unless you reduce your costs, you will not benefit from that things. It is not left to the hotels. It should not be left to the hotels to do such things. They have to be supported as a capacity building process. So such type of technical things have to be implemented on the incentive procedures. Those investors who are investing in the remote area and the urban area should not be the same. They need to have a special privilege for those who are investing in the countryside, especially the destination areas. Ethiopia will have two types of tourism businesses in the future. That's the MICE business and the leisure business. This leisure and traditional way of tourism needs a big incentive, especially on those local and the remote areas which peoples are not salvated to do such businesses in that area. So the government have to push that type of businesses in different packages. For example, if we take a hotel project in the city and the countryside, the investment is the same, except the land value, okay? So why I'm going to the countryside unless I get a special privilege and take a risk to develop on that area? So we need to have a special privilege on that sector. So we have to focus on such areas.
Well, let's now get back to the issue I raised so far, and hotels in places like Lalibela and Aksum are severely affected by the pandemics as well as the conflicts in those areas. And what do you think are the solutions to get out of this situation?
First, the political stability is very important. I think there are some improvements that we saw right now on that both areas in Aksum and Lalibela. Definitely we'll see some differences in few years. But just privileging that areas to reboost the tourism industry, particularly on that area, need a special attention. For example, if we take Lalibela and Aksum are the top leveled tourist destinations in Ethiopian tourism business. So what are the privileges again to give to the tour operators to do such businesses on that area? What type of protection they will get? What type of additional incentive they will get? These are the areas that to be discussed with the tour operators. The government have to sit with these professional peoples and do some guidances. So not only just discussing about these issues, special tourist forces, tourist policies have to be around there in order to protect and safeguard that area. So these are normal procedures done in other countries. So I think these areas are directly related with the political situation. Definitely it will be solved very soon. We saw some progresses in some areas, but we have to focus on professional opinions, especially who are involved on these businesses. So the government have to sit and have to plan how to do such businesses and reboost that area. Not only just in terms of investment, by the way. It is a mentality makeup that to do the marketing easily.
Well, we see that Ethiopia's hospitality sector as well as the tourism sector has been just entangled, particularly over the past 3 years. due to those two factors I mentioned. And what's your advice to revamp the sector?
In order to get the international tourists, it will take time, 2-3 years, to reboost that area normally. But you have to focus on the domestic tourism first. So the peoples will have a confidence to see that places, and this type of activity will be a tool to market that area. So that the local investors, as I said, the incentive have to focus on the marketing activity also. So that the government have to support that local hotels or the project owners or even the tour operators, guides and other interested peoples to support them on the marketing activity. Marketing activity is not just like any other simple things that's done on the department level. If there is some problem on the country, the government have to market that destination and technically support with the international experienced professionals. International professionals, in relation to marketing activity, they are not cheap in terms of payments. They are extremely expensive because they are reboosting the businesses easily. They know the technique, they have the technology, they have the mental readiness on that sectors. So you have to focus on the marketing activity that the government have to focus and support them, how to reduce their costs and boost their markets with the incentive package. These are the ways how to be done.
Well, let me just allow you the last chance to say any message to those actors in the hospitality sector so that Ethiopia's hospitality sector could be revamped better.
The most important thing is the human capital. The human capital, as we know, we have a lot of graduates in this sector, but they don't have any exposure. Especially those who are assigned to promote the country's destination, they need to be trained globally. This type of training is very important. As I said, I'm also a marketing guy, so that I know how marketing is very important, but trained peoples have to be in that office with global exposure. So the government have to focus on the human capital development, especially in relation to the international exposures. This is very critical issues. What we have a problem here is we have a lot of graduates, but they don't have any exposure. So they don't know what's going on globally. It is not a matter of Googling or seeing on the internet something. It's not like that. They have to sit with the other peoples internationally and do some investigations and come back and do some activities. The second important thing is technology. Without technology, we cannot mitigate such type of issues. So rebranding the country as a tourist destination and rebranding international projects, even branding the existing projects which are under progress, you need to have a technology to promote. Sometimes I'm just laughing when I see on the social media that people are trying to promote on Facebook or something like that, their destinations. International peoples are not interested directly on the social medias, always. This social media most of the time is addressing the local peoples instead of the international community. There are big platforms that the technology will provide us, okay, in the future. For example, take the LinkedIn, okay? There are few people are using such type of platforms. The directors are there. They are not on maybe on Facebook. So that you have to focus on both things. Facebook is very important. Also the LinkedIn is very important. And there are other platforms, not only that one. There are websites or tourist portals that we can show our new destinations. For example, we have a big parks in the city, okay? we have to promote these destinations even for international communities on different platforms, so that there are technical people who can do such activity. Technology is very important. Without technology, we will not do anything easily, okay? The other important thing is innovation. Let me take some ideas about innovations. There are youngsters who knows about the technology or some innovations that we can promote these things easily, again, on the international platforms. So we are not on the international platform still now. When we go abroad and see the real players platform, Ethiopia is not there. So embassies have to focus on the international platforms. They have to participate on the international trade fairs, even not necessarily to participate as a team, but as an embassy. They have to be there and see the experience and make some feedbacks to the local peoples. These are the basic area that we have to focus. The other important thing is the media. Let me take about the local medias, those who are working on the tourism. Do you know any media that's working on the tourism on the international community? Do you have? Why? We have very good qualified journalists in relation to tourism, by the way. We have to upgrade them and support them to present themselves on the international media. We are not supporting them. We just take them to the countryside to see some areas. This is not helpful. They have to be abroad. They have to go abroad and see all the situations and how the international tourism is, you see, on the media. And it's not necessarily about the language, by the way. It's just an exposure. We don't have an exposure. Still now we have a serious problem on the exposure. So the government have to send a lot of teams, and trainings have to be done abroad, not here. So it's an investment on people. So we have to focus on medias and also even the consultancy level. Let me take on the consultancy. For example, we are doing international projects negotiations, and this type of negotiations is done by the international companies, and locally we are doing such things. But we are almost less than 5 companies or 3 companies, I'm not sure. Is it enough? It's not enough for this country. We have to get a lot of experiences, have to be connected with the international peoples. So that such type of exposure is very important, and I always insist the executive peoples to focus on the exposure instead of just focusing on the local activities. We have a big potential, especially on our sector in hospitality and tourism areas. So such type of hugeness is not just a simple gift from our God. So that we have to focus and do activities step by step. We cannot do things at the same time. We have to make a plan. Tourism activity planning or strategy is not workable in short period of time. We cannot focus on 1 year or next year we'll achieve such things. No. A minimum mid to large period of time strategic plan have to be done properly. We have to think after 15 years, we have to think above 5 years. From 5 to 10 years, maybe we can get a good improvement on this sector. So we have to focus and involve professionals on different areas. And I think it's very easy to get what we deserve
Thank you so much, Kumnagar, for joining me and just sharing your views regarding the hospitality sector entanglement as well as just the ways out. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dear viewers, this is today's discussion on Etv Special Edition, and we talked about the Ethiopia's hospitality industry entanglement as well as how to revamp the sector. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Sintayo Tamrat with this edition, and see you another time.